direct from the web, it's Billy Masters Live. And now, please welcome your host, Billy Masters.
We're back. Another show. Oh my God, wait, hold on. Oh my God, do you see? I've got the wrong still shown. Hello, welcome. Sue, stop laughing. It's only been a year. Welcome to Billy Masters Live. You would think after a year we'd know what we were doing, but we don't necessarily. But who cares? As far as I'm concerned, it's a show. And as one of our guests today would be able to say to us, look, it's no Tamron Hall. But, that's okay. Who cares? What is the date? Oh, thank God somebody's on the ball. Today is Thursday, April 1st. Sue is under the table already. God, it's like old times. She used to be under the bar. All right. Anyway, welcome to the show. I have some good news, and we'll talk about this, but I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I think we have turned the corner, at least in Massachusetts, when it comes to the coronavirus. And it's because of Stop and Shop. Now, I know those of you not in this New England area don't know Stop and Shop. It's like a grocery store. It's a big supermarket. Well, through the whole pandemic, they have limited you to one entrance for entrance and exits, and they've been keeping track of you. Well, I went to my local Stop and Shop just yesterday. Both doors were open. They were letting you leave out of the door more convenient to where I park. So I say Stop and Shop is like my groundhog. We are almost out of the woods. And then, of course, tomorrow we may be back in the woods. It has been a year. So for those of you who don't know the story of how we started this show, what happened was Seth Rudetsky and James Wesley started doing daily shows for the Actors Fund. And they were doing them twice a day. They still are, I believe. And they may only be doing one a day now. Anyway, they've raised like over $700,000 for the Actors Fund. So bravo to them. Anyway, so I was watching the shows and I was recovering from rotator cuff surgery. And I'm sitting here in my parents' house. And I wrote to Seth and said, what a great job you're doing with these shows. And he wrote back, well, then why aren't you doing a show? He said, we have to do what we can to keep people entertained and focused, and people are stuck at home. And it was a brand new world. And if The View and The Talk and The Take and The Real and all those shows could be doing shows from home, why couldn't I? And I said, all right, well, why couldn't I? But I'm not raising money for anyone. God knows it's costing me money. So anyway, that's how the show got started. And throughout this pandemic, I've only had one co-host, so I can't say favorite. But she would be my favorite even if I had 100 co-hosts. She was the former host of The Take. Do you see? The Take. Look, there I am. And look, there she is. 4 times on the show and I got a mug. That's all I'm saying. She is NECN, which is New England Cable News for those of you not in New England, NECN's political commentator, and she is our chief correspondent, Sue O'Connell. Stop laughing, Sue.
You can also see me on NBC LX nationally on Mondays.
Oh, is that the Latino channel? Do you speak Spanish?
No, we have Telemundo. That's part of our family, but LX is on the web. No, it's local. Oh. Local, NBC local, although I'm here.
Do I get that on a channel?
You can get it on the channel. You can get it over the air.
Is it a digital channel?
Well, I don't know what that means.
Well, like if you have an antenna, like is it
18.4
or something?
You can get it anywhere. You can get it over the air. You can get it on your Roku. You can get it on your dish. Just say to your little thing, NBC LX.
But don't say Sue O'Connell because it's not going to come up.
Nothing will come up. The math teacher.
And also quite frequently on NPR in Greater Boston and all those.
Yes. I go from GBH and PBS to Billy Masters. So there you go.
Talk about range. So have you noticed, is your local Stop and Shop opening a second door yet?
I don't think mine has a second door. My James
I'm in the yuppie area.
I'm in the city, man.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know how I feel right now. I feel optimistic. I've got my appointment. I'll be eligible any minute, and I'm the next group. I got my appointment, so I'm thrilled to get vaccinated. Good. I'm thrilled that people are getting vaccinated.
I got my first.
But I don't, I'm concerned about where we are about what we're comfortable with. Like, are we comfortable with 30 to 40 people a day dying in Massachusetts related to COVID? Is that a number we're going to be okay with? What's, we're okay with, and I'm just going to speak as cold-blooded as I can here. Right. We're fine with the number of people who die from the flu every year, which is 20 to 65,000, right? 20,000 to 65,000 people die from the flu every year. And we're fine with what we do about that, right? No mandatory vaccination.
We never think about it, right?
We never think about it except when it's really bad, and then we might know someone who dies. So we're fine with that risk. We're fine with the risk for driving a car, right?
Which is less actually than flu, I think.
But we're fine with all these risks. So are we now at a point where we're thinking, we can live with 40 people a day in Massachusetts on average dying? And I'm not. I think that we still could be doing more to reduce transmission and reduce deaths, obviously. But and because of that, I would really like to stay wherever we are, whatever phase we're in. I'd like to be in that phase until the end of the year, frankly.
Really?
Because I would like to make sure that we don't have to go back into lockdown. Right, we don't want to send all the kids to school and then bring them all back home again, or tell the restaurants they can open with this amount of people inside and bring them all back home again, or that say, Maine, you can't come visit us, we can't go.
Right.
I would just like to say this is where we're going to stay until December 31st. I'll let you know December 1st what we think and take it from there. So I'm not happy. Also with this, this variant that's out there here in Massachusetts.
Well, there's 3 now.
Cape Cod, right, has an increasing rate of infections. You also might note that Cape Cod is where a lot of Republicans live, right? So we're also finding
is the Cape very Republican? I didn't know that.
It's more Republican than other parts of Massachusetts.
I had no idea, really.
Yeah, and we have to keep in mind, it was the leading groups that were vaccine hesitant were
right.
Communities of color, Black and brown, African American, Hispanic. The Hispanic Latino community is still not doing great in terms of getting vaccinated, and that might be because of access and all the issues that we know.
That's the question.
One of the leading groups right now is Republicans. Republicans are not getting their vaccinations, and we can't reach any level of working here unless we all get vaccinated. All of us who can should get vaccinated. So that's my rant. So your question was, are my doors open at the stopping? No.
First off, the fact that you said the stopping just kills me.
The stopping.
That's what we call it.
It's what it is. It's the stopping. No, the doors at my stopping unopened because we only got one.
Go to Revere. They got lots of doors there. Check there. I famously said on this show that I was hesitant about getting the vaccine, and I wanted to wait and see because I didn't feel there was enough data. And there was one thing, and it's a selfish if you ask my mother, there are 2 things. Yeah. My mother wanted me to get the vaccine so that I can have the nieces and nephews over for Easter. Yeah. That was it. And I'm like, so let me go and get a shot so you can have kids over for Easter.
You're not Easter this Sunday. You have
we're We're May 2nd or something. Yeah, Orthodox Easter. And of course I said, well, have those kids been vaccinated? Like, what does that have to do with me? Because even if I get vaccinated, you're still a carrier. Right. So anyway, that was what put it in the head, which of course, the minute my mother tells me to do something, it's like you. I'm not doing it. Right. Just to annoy her. Right. So, but the fact that I like to travel And if there's an opportunity to travel, I want to know that I'm at least somewhat protected, even if not fully protected.
Right.
So I did go. I had an opportunity. I'm not going into details, but I had an opportunity to get one, and I did get one. And
Yeah,
I have to say,
listen, I'm totally on board with it. If someone offers you one,
yeah, right.
someone calls you and says we have extras, or someone says
It was one of those situations.
You go, you take it. You take it.
Right.
If you're lying, I'm not loving you. So.
Right. All right. Well, let's say it's right in the middle there. So there's a gray area with me, Sue O'Connell.
Yeah.
But I have not had a shot since I was about 7 years old, and famously,
you haven't had a flu shot, so
never. No. I also never get the flu.
Problem. You don't know that you never have the flu. 25% of flu infections are asymptomatic, and you are still contagious even though you don't have symptoms. So when people say, I don't have the flu because I never got sick, that means you're probably a super spreader.
And I've slept with a lot of people. I think the record shows that.
So you say.
I mean, I really couldn't tell you who they were.
That's what you say.
Anyway, but the point is, it has been drilled in my head since I have not had a shot since I was about 7 years old, that it would take 4 people to hold me down to give me a shot.
Well, that was true.
Well, that was anything. And so I had a lot of trepidation going into this. And so I go in and, had the shoulder exposed, and the woman says, okay, relax. I'm like, okay, I'm relaxed. Like, she's like, if I can't see your neck, you're not relaxed. So anyway, relaxed. And literally, for people watching, this is from a baby, like a mosquito bite. That was it. It is no big deal. I also had no side effects. And I was told drink a ton of water the day of the shot and a ton of the water the day after the shot. And I did, and I was fine.
Yeah, and you need to get the flu shot. You haven't had a tetanus shot?
No.
You haven't traveled anywhere where you've had to get a hepatitis, any of those shots?
No, I've been told that I should, but no, I don't. I know, I'm horrible.
What's the problem, really?
I mean, I did sit there and say, well, that was it. What else do you got? You got that shingle shot? Because I know I should get the shingle shot and the pneumonia shot.
Shingles. You don't want to get shingles. I had chicken pox when I was 24. That's the first time I got chicken pox was when I was 24. And then I got shingles, and you don't get the shingle shot. And then get the, you know what, I'll take you. How about that? How about that'll be like our first
that would be
each
fun.
other over a year. I'll take you to get fully vaccinated.
And you hold me down.
I'll hold you down.
If anyone could hold me down.
Hold my hand.
Yes, well, and we'll film it.
Yeah, we'll make money.
It could be a segment on the show. Nobody is making money.
It'll be a TikTok. People love it.
So let me ask you now, you're also a publisher of Bay Windows and South End News. So let's talk about print media. With the pandemic, we know that people weren't going out, therefore not picking up magazines and newspapers with the regularity that they were before.
Yeah.
Has that picked up?
Yeah, I mean, we have been driven, we never really had nightclub advertising either.
No, it's been years.
Or I mean, even before, restaurant advertising. It was never really a business that we chased after. So
no, it was service oriented.
Yeah. So the service guy, people were still getting stuff done, still getting their gutters cleaned, so things have held steady for us, amazingly. So
it has been months since my gutters were cleaned.
I bet.
I'm just telling you.
And some of the national advertisers in Bay Windows have stayed dedicated to the LGBTQ press. So, so things have been holding steady.
And again, South End.
Okay, we'll pay you, so don't worry about that.
Well, all right. No, I know that. When I remember to send in the invoices, Jeff kills me constantly.
It's helpful.
Yeah, I know that does help. And of course, South End News is a local neighborhood paper, and people still have to go out to get milk or whatever. Yeah,
and we're still distributing we're free. Both papers are free, and we want to stay free. So we distribute in Whole Foods, and there's it's harder because there's fewer places to actually be where folks are going out, but we're there and they're picking it up, and we got the websites.
What about you? Have you been going out?
No.
Have you still been staying in?
I have actually pulled back because of the variants. I'm not going to the I'm not going to the Stoppy.
Well,
I'm not-
especially with two doors.
yeah, I haven't. I'm wearing the the hardcore masks.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was wearing a shield for a while, and yeah, because I'm not. I don't. As my friend Juliet Kayyem, the security analyst who's often on CNN and GBH says, I neither want to be the last person infected nor the last person to get the vaccine. So at this point, I would find it to be, even though, people can do all the right things and still get sick, I would find it to be a massive personal failure if I get infected at this time.
And how about your daughter? Is she able to go to school, or is she
No.
still doing virtual?
She's been doing virtual since like middle school, a mix of virtual.
Oh, okay.
She's at Bunker Hill Community College, and they've been virtual, and she's taken a couple of courses over at Berkeley College of Music. So, and she's
Have they opened?
They're not open in person. I think they're open in person in the fall.
Okay.
So she's just got her second shot because unfortunately she's eligible, but fortunately we got it. So we'll push her out.
So, with all of this has come a lot of cancel culture, which we've talked about. And God knows, if I had anyone to cancel me, I would have been canceled by now. Because, my opinions do not necessarily jibe with general population or polite society. So, and I have to say, we seem to have gotten to a point where freedoms in terms of expression have really been challenged because there is a huge rise in political correctness. And have you noticed that?
I totally disagree with you on every single thing you just said, except about how you should be canceled. Other than that, I totally disagree with you.
All right.
Cancel culture is a made-up thing by the conservatives, right?
Well, I do believe that. I agree.
If you say something, this has always been true. We just haven't had, I said it 2 seconds ago, and now everyone's mad at me now because of social media and we're all connected in a way with our own news service and our own little world and the amplification of things. So what used to take maybe 6 months, like a comic could go on the road, Billy, 20 years ago, and tell the same joke in every single city for a year and a half. And then one day someone hears it or got mad about it a year and a half ago.
Or videotapes it.
Right. Well, before though, right? It just went out into the air and no one heard it, right? And then someone would lose their contract with a sneaker company because of what they said. But it would take years for it to happen. So it's not new. It's if you say something that's offensive to people, or you say something that is in contrary to your
is that delivery coming?
Thing. Hold on 1 second. Let's take a call.
Okay, please.
Hello?
No, we'll put Sue in the background.
Okay.
Oh, all right, there you go.
I'm waiting to
She's got a package coming.
I got a new car. I got a package coming, so it's kind of funny. So if you say something that's in conflict with your public image for right or wrong, right? Billie Jean King, right?
Yep.
Billie Jean King, if we're going by this model of cancel culture, was canceled for being a lesbian, and she lost all of her endorsements, right?
Yes, right.
So this cancel culture idea is not new. You say something or do something, there will be ramification. Doesn't mean it's fair. Doesn't mean it's right. There's going to be ramifications.
Well, maybe then it is, as you said, the speed of it and the fact that more companies are bowing to public pressure than they did, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I don't know. More companies are now more, they answer more quickly to their consumers than they used to. I mean, think about it. If you got upset about something that Burger King did when you were 19, what were you going to do?
Yes.
Nothing. What were you going to do? You're going to go
call the 800 number and nothing would happen.
So now what happens if you're upset about something Burger King does? You go to Twitter, you start a hashtag, and Burger King has to respond. So
But do they? That's the question. Do they have to respond?
Well, if they want to be, if they are not living up to the values that they are espousing, right? So if a company says we're for diversity, we're for a safe environment, we're for these things, right? And then an employee or an ad or something happens that is not in harmony with that happens, then they should take action about it and they should respond to it. But at the same time, Disney, right? Disney parks, Disney movies in the 1990s came out supporting LGBTQ employees and LGBTQ rights. And they were told they were going to be boycotted by every Christian in the United States because of it. And the head of Disney said, so what? Right? So they don't always, but I think that, my mother, if she were alive, would say that when you use the word political correctness, you're really just saying polite, right? So,
and I'm not into polite. Because here's the thing, remember when, I'm trying to think which president it was. I guess it was George W. Bush,
I was going to say
the younger one.
The first
no, I don't remember him, sorry. But George W. Bush, that you knew that he wasn't necessarily in favor of gay rights or didn't necessarily care about the gays, but you knew where he stood, and people said, but you could sit down and have a beer with them, and it wouldn't matter. And I'm like, I like to know where people stand. I don't want them to espouse what they think I want to hear. That's what troubles me about the political correctness, is that if somebody expresses a contrary opinion, their whole job could be in jeopardy.
Right, but you're expressing contrary opinion as if it's an opinion about something rather than sort of like a factual assessment about where we are. If I say it's my opinion that I don't want to serve gay men, and that's my opinion, that's not an opinion. That's a bias and a prejudice, right?
But aren't you entitled to your own biases and prejudices?
Not if I'm a business owner. Not if I want.
Now there's another thing, whatever happened, and again, I'm on both sides of this, because I've argued, if you were on the other side, I'd argue the other way. But since you're on that side, whatever happened to we reserved the right to not serve anybody for any reason?
Well, and non-discrimination laws.
I know, but if I own a business and some KKK member in a hood comes in, can't I just say, I don't want to serve you? You
can't. No, there are absolutely people that you can deem as disruptive, right? But that's why we have.
What about I just don't want to serve you?
No, you can.
You can't do that.
No, you can. You can say if someone is disruptive, or if someone is making other customers uncomfortable, or making your staff uncomfortable, or comes in a KK robe, or comes in with a Nazi swastika on their head. You can absolutely deny them service based on their disruption, right, of what's happening, how it would impact your customers. But you can't just say, I don't want to serve you, and that you just happens to be over and over and over again a person of color, right? That's what happened. That's how that gets covered. That's how they pretend that they're not just excluding certain types of individual people. Right. And that's why we have non-discrimination laws on the books, both in cities and towns, in states, and on the federal level, to try and protect people from just being discriminated against and saying, no, we have no rooms for you. I'm sorry you drove all night. I'm sorry it's Maine. I'm sorry you're a Black family. I know it says we have vacancies, but we have no vacancies for you. And that's what non-discrimination laws protect against.
Now, I have property in Fort Lauderdale, which is vacation property, and people rent it occasionally. And I have now a policy that I will not rent to people under 25. And what it really is doing, because I think I legally can say that. We will eventually. But what I'm really doing is discriminating against spring breakers. That's the reason that rule is in there. And the rule is in there because I've had bad experience with spring breakers and the neighbors don't want them there. Right. So you come up with a way that you can discriminate against them legally, but that's really what you're doing.
Right. But that's, the discrimination there is a different, the car, you can't rent a car, right? Unless you're 25?
I think it's 25. That's why they told me that's what I could do. Right.
There's a whole bunch of legal aspects that are okay about that. But, you also, you can always, this is the whole thing about what the wealthy, the top 10% love to do is, they charge more to keep us out. Right. Are your gyms really that much better than our gyms? Are they really that? Are they really spending the $1,000 a month for a gym membership versus my $100 a month for a gym membership? Is it really that much better than mine? No, they just want to keep us out.
But then it also goes to like a bakery or a florist that doesn't want to say make a cake for a gay wedding. Part of I see it from both sides, because I would also not want a baker who doesn't want to cook for a gay wedding. I don't want to give them my business anyway.
Right.
So I would rather know up front, we'll do it, but we don't like it. Okay, good. Then I won't go to you.
Right, but you're looking at it from the perspective of being in Boston, where you have hundreds of choices, if not 1,000 choices of who you want to make your cake. When you get out of the city, you don't have that luxury, right?
So basically, I'm a yuppie elitist. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, you are. You're a yuppie.
That's fine. I can live with that. It's fine.
It could be worse.
Again, one of my biggest problems, and we can go, that's a special show. It's on this very special Billy Masters, Billy's problems. But, when there's a tenants' rights issue, I've had family members who have been landlords. I've had family members who are renters. So it's really hard to see where that line is, and where it is, as you said, protecting your business and being acceptable versus prejudice.
Right. Well, and this is where the government should come in, right? So
Jesus.
The biggest difference between America and Europe is that Europe thinks the government works for them. And in America, we're like afraid of the government, right? So meanwhile, in France, they're mad at their government for how they failed. And here we're arguing about the government telling us to wear masks, right? So if we had a government that guaranteed the protections of landlords and tenants, and made sure that there were abilities, like if we had gotten the stimulus money when we needed to, instead of how long it's taken, then landlords, I've been a landlord in the past too. I totally hear you. It's not like these big mega companies. It's mom and pops or mom and moms or pops and pops that own a few pieces of real estate, and they're stuck.
And they depend on that to pay their bills, right? I get it.
So, but that's where the government should be able to come in and say, look, we're going to put a moratorium on paying you don't have to pay your mortgage, right? You don't have to.
And then the person who's accepting that money is like, okay, where's my money?
Right. But it's just, I just think that we don't demand a lot from our government. And, the Ronald Reagan mythology of, the scariest words in the English language are, I'm the government and I'm here to help you, which he said at the beginning of the AIDS pandemic when he did absolutely nothing to help anybody.
I did think about that when this pandemic came about, and I thought to myself, wow, if all these doctors who are trying to come up with the vaccine had been mobilized trying to do something when AIDS first started, there might have been a vaccine.
Right. Or Ebola, even if, there have been lessons that were learned from HIV, AIDS.
Is that dog there?
Yeah, that's
okay. I love your dog. It's fine.
No, that's not Maud. That's an Inca. I have two. Inca, if Inca doesn't see me, she whines. It's kind of like you.
It is. Well, you're leading into our first guest. So
I'll sit over here a little bit so she can see me.
Oh, please let me. Okay, there you go. But it leads into our first guest because Mack Beggs, it's such a fascinating story. I wrote about it in the column 3 years ago when it first started. Oh, God. All right, first, Mack, let me just tell you, you're watching backstage. There is a good chance I'm going to say something wrong. I'm going to use a wrong pronoun. I'm going to fuck up in some way. None of it is personal. I'm just an idiot. But what's great, sometimes when people become transgender, you use the wrong pronouns because you're looking at the person and you're seeing who they were rather than who they are. Let me just tell you something. I look at Mack and I'm like, that's a hot guy. So this is not an issue for me at all. See, look, I would have hit on him. Anyway, so Mack was born. I'm going to just try to plow through this.
He was in high school during those photos, Billy. So no, you wouldn't just have hit on him.
All right. That's what you say. Yeah, tell the dog. Okay. Mack was born biologically female. Okay. Mack became transgender in high school. I'm watching Mack. Mack will nod or he will let me know when I screw something up. He was a wrestler. According to the University Interscholastic League that oversees all of the Texas public schools, to compete, you must compete under the gender you were born in. Okay? So even though he had started the transgender process and presented himself as a male and looked like a male, he had to compete with the women. Is that right, Mac? Mac's looking at me. Yes. Okay, good. Okay. Of course, he beat all the girls. The girls weren't happy. The boys weren't happy because they wanted to compete against Mac. Mac wasn't happy, but he couldn't legally, even though everybody wanted him to compete in the boys division, he had to compete in the girls division. That's just the beginning of the story. There's so much more. So please welcome Mack Beggs. Hey, Mac.
Hi. Hey, how's it
Was
going?
that kind of right? Kind of?
Actually, the females and the males, the kids had no problem. I talked to my competitor. It was only the parents and, people who were outside who had no idea even about wrestling, about the sport of wrestling, and even just my story in general. Like 99% of my competitors that I had, I was friends with, and I still talk to till this day.
And it seems to me. Oh,
Will you put me off for a second so I can go take care of my dog, Mac? You hold that.
Go.
I'll be right back.
All right, Sue, you're gone. It's all right because I got so much to ask you. I want to actually go back. Right ahead. I want to go back before all of this. So, when did you start to think that you were born in the wrong gender body?
I think when I was in probably first grade and kindergarten. Really? Actually, it was pre-K. It was pre-K. I actually went to a Catholic school in Irving, and I was I had to dress in a skirt, a tie and everything, and we had to recite the Bible verse when we were first went into school. It was nuts. And I saw this girl, across the room, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, that was the first initial thought. And I was just
so did you think that maybe you were, I mean, again, you may not have had the words, but did you think that you may be a lesbian and not transgender?
That's why I was struggling with. I didn't even know about the LGBT community until probably 5th grade or 6th grade. It was very new and very prominent then. So that was probably around 08, 07. And even when I was first thinking about it, it was probably around 05. And the thing is that it was more of the aspect of not just the sexuality nature. It was more the fact that, I didn't like that I was developing when I was coming a teenager. I didn't like how I was developing up in this area. And when my hormones started kicking in, estrogen, I was just oh, I don't like this. This doesn't feel right. I'm not feeling myself. Even these thoughts are now becoming solidified to the fact that, I'm developing into the person that I don't want to be. Right. I don't want to be this. I want to be what's up here in my head.
We've had this conversation.
I want to thank you, Mac, for all. I know that all you wanted to do was wrestle. And the idea of having to be an activist and have to go through the pain that you went through just to do what you wanted to do. I just want to thank you for doing that and let you know that I appreciate the challenge of having to go through all that and also having to sit through Billy's introduction. I also understand the challenge.
Nah, he was cracking you up.
Let's just talk about all the things Billy said wrong. Shall we begin?
Well, no, what I think is really important, Mac just brought up a really good point, and we had this conversation with Gabby Tuft a couple weeks ago, is that I think people really get caught up in the difference between the biology and the sexuality. And I wanted to ask because as a kid, you probably don't know what the difference is. Is it the body or is it the interest? And with transgender kids that I've talked to and adults who say they always felt that they looked in the mirror and were angry or this isn't who I feel like I am inside. So I wanted to hear that from you.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I think, just as you get older and you're developing your thoughts, you're able to solidify, a more construct idea of who you want to be as a person. And when you're a child, you're like, oh, well, I want to play with that toy. I want to wear those clothes. And, I asked my mom if I could, wear guys' clothes. And, she's trying to force me into wearing like girl panties and like bras, and I was like, this doesn't sound like me. Like, I don't want this. Like, I don't.
And
want
it wasn't just a phase, like, oh, you'll grow out of being a tomboy. This was something deep inside, obviously.
Yeah. And after a while, my grandmother and my mom, they kind of had an idea, but they were just like, oh, we have a tomboy on our hands. Like, what are we gonna do? Right. I was like, I first came out as bisexual because I was like, I didn't even know trans was like even a thing until my mom actually watched a Kitty Couric show about trans kids. And we were having literally a 15-minute car ride from my grandmother's to my mom's. Wow. And she was like, just out of nowhere, it was the most bizarre conversation until this day that me and my mom had a conversation about. She was like, do you feel like, you're trapped in the wrong body? I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
But how lucky for you that somebody even had those words.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be in the family that I'm in right now, especially, they're Republicans. They're not necessarily like, yeah.
Oh yeah, you were brought up in Texas, so we should bring that up.
Yeah.
that goes. There's actually a lot of Democrats in Texas, Billy. There just have to be more Republicans. I heard a great description, which I can't believe I had never seen before, of sort of describing what it's like to be trans. It's like being left-handed, right, in a right-handed world. Where no one tells you that you actually can write with your left hand. And then, one day someone says, hey, have you ever tried to write with your left hand? And you're like, oh my God, I'm left-handed. I had no idea. I mean, I was actually switched in first grade. I was I'm left-handed, but they switched me.
And you were forced.
I was forced. Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Well, it's not as crazy as what's happened to you, but it's all I know right now, so I'm going with it.
So you start realizing that you have these feelings as a preteen or early teens. And so tell us what happened next.
I just kind of developed into the person. Like I had free range to like do what I want. I had a little harder time, when I went to go get boxer briefs with my mom. I think that was like, that solid like argument and conversation, like, this is happening. You gotta like let go of, and I don't mind using my dead name. You gotta let go of Mackenzie, and you have to let Mack breathe and live, and in the truth that I want to be. Like, and even then, like, I think 911. I just recently started watching it. There's the trans man that's in there, and he was talking to his sister. He was like, Mackenzie's not dead, and that always hurts me. I think about my sister, and I'm like, do I feel like I killed a part of like that person that she was always connected to? But the thing is, like, that person wasn't always like, I didn't kill that person. I was there the whole time.
Still the same person, right?
Yeah.
It's we talked about this last time, Billy, too, that it's the folks around you, the family and friends, even those who love you when you're talking about it now, they have an expectation level, a projection that they put on your life, right, and how they want it to be. And it's hard for them sometimes to adjust. And it's, in all sorts of ways, for all people. It's not, but it's good. And it sounds like your family has had that space, and you've had that space to kind of work out where we are now, or where you are now.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like my grandmother is like, a hard-born Baptist Catholic, and it took her a lot. It took her a year to finally talk to me, which is she's my number one biggest supporter now. She shielded me from everything that happened in high school with the lawyer trying to file a lawsuit against me. When I was going through a lot of mental health issues, and I was trying to, attempt suicide, cut myself and everything, she was right there next to me the whole time. She was like, I can't find a single thing in the Bible that shows that, shows that I need to hate you. I don't. Right. I love you unconditionally.
It's so fascinating, like history. There's plenty of examples of what we would now call trans people all throughout indigenous cultures. And it's not until, the colonizers show up that suddenly those things are considered wrong, or there's binary choices. Homosexuality is frowned upon, in every spot where that's been colonized by the West, those things suddenly become illegal and frowned upon. I'm also wondering, I often make this argument, I'm just wondering if it rings true to you that, people are freaking out about this. Some people are freaking out about this on the high school level, and as someone who coached, middle school soccer on the lowest level team, it's not like it's this exceptionally elite athlete mix. Lots of kids are playing high school sports and participating for the love of the sport or to be with their friends or to hang out, and it seems such a tragedy that this argument is being played out in a spot in those years where you guys, high school kids then should be able to just be and enjoy the sport and enjoy hanging out.
Yes, I completely agree. And then the thing is like these bills aren't just, attacking. The whole argument is around transgender women. It's trying to attack women in sports. Especially on the medical side, how are we going to, check these athletes? Is it now that we are now going to target the LGBT community, the queer people? Because if we don't, they don't look to standard societies of what a woman looks like. Is that what we're going to? Are we going back to 1965 in the Olympics to where, we're checking women's genitalia to, figure out, that's the biological sex that you were born as? I mean, that's ridiculous. I wouldn't want someone, checking my 14-year-old daughter because they weren't sure of what she or him was.
Yeah, this is where we had this conversation with Gabby and where I had the complete opposite side. And it never occurred to me to think of it from your point of view. In Gabby's point of view, Gabby had been born male, became a woman. And I felt that if she competed against women, having been born male with the advantages of the musculoskeletal system having been male, she'd have an unfair advantage. It never occurred to me to think that somebody who was born female becoming male would fight to compete against guys who were genetically male and might have advantages over now him.
I mean, and it's possible. I mean, I was
and you said you didn't care. You just wanted to fight the boys, wrestle the boys.
Yeah, but I mean, I wrestled guys in high school. The thing is that you can't limit yourself when you're an elite athlete and you want to get to that, that top level of being an athlete, especially for yourself. You cannot limit yourself. You cannot limit yourself on just, the basis of sex. And I mean, that's ridiculous. It's all about, how hard you work every single day. I mean, I don't know very many athletes, who were in Texas that were, practicing at least 5 to 6 hours of training every single day. I mean, at most, the standard athlete probably practices from 2 hours to 3 hours a day, and then they go home and that's it.
Billy, I disagreed with that too.
I know you did.
In terms of when you get to
I as well.
Part of my argument about this is you've got your high school athletes, and then you have elite athletes.
Well, he's talking about elite athletes.
I know, and elite athletes, the differences in men and women biologically when you get to the elite level is not as great as you think it is, right? Especially when you get to sports like tennis or marathons,
right?
And, all sorts of sports where
it's been proven throughout history. I mean, God, I wish I had the actual names, but there was that whole tennis, competition between
Battle of the
famous
Masters,
right? Billy,
yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's research now. I'm so glad I could actually say this research now. There's this physician in the UK. She has now has solid analytical data showing that transgender women athletes do not have an advantage over cis female athletes, because after 5 to 6 months of hormonal therapy, their red blood cell count and their bone mass density reduces to that of a cis female.
No, wow.
Yeah, and the other challenge, too, is, I can't help but see misogyny as the underpinning of all of this, trying to block trans athletes from competing. And it's misogyny because, they make it sound like women are these delicate flowers that can't compete, right? So we have to protect the girls' teams under any circumstance because they need to be protected. They don't want a trans man participating in men's sports because of the misogyny of what it says on your birth certificate. They don't want a trans woman participating in women's sports because this is someone who was who's got a male name on a birth certificate and is now a woman, right? So the thread of transphobia to me is, besides obviously transphobia, the underpinning of it to me is misogyny.
Yeah, it was crazy because I remember this match I had with this dude in freestyle and Greco. It was during the summer, and he knew that I was a trans man. And I whooped his ass. Like I kicked his ass. Like it was so funny. I was laughing during the match. I felt so bad, but I was like, oh, this dude's feeling is getting hurt so bad. I was like, I'm so sorry. I hurt your toxic masculinity. And he was like, he shook my hand at the end. He was like, good match. I was like, yeah, you too, bro. I was like, get out of here with your weak ass.
I'm not going to tell anyone that I was beaten, though. I'm just going to take this and go home.
Well, you had brought up in an interview, I think it was with ESPN, because I watched a lot last night, that one of the arguments that a lot of the girls, I shouldn't say the girls, as you pointed out, the girls' families had, was that since you were transitioning, you were undergoing testosterone therapy. What they didn't understand was that you were using the blocker so that you would not get increased muscle mass. But that's all very kind of scientific for a suburban parent to understand. All they know is, he's taking steroids, So what do you say to that? I mean, explain a little bit about what you were doing and how it could have screwed up your whole system.
Yeah. So, I wanted to take testosterone. I was like, I'm becoming a teenager. I want to grow facial hair to, the best of my ability. I mean, even now, I've been on testosterone for 8 years now, eight years plus going. And I still can't even grow hair here. It's little bitty hairs, every now and then. And this is basically only it. That's it. And, the thing is that, everybody's body's different. So I had to talk to my doctor and be like, I want to continue competing. I know that I cannot compete against the males. I have to compete against the females. I know if UIL and anybody other parent sees me as a trans man, I'm not going to stop living my truth. How do we go about this in the best way to where I can receive my care, my hormonal therapy without having to compromise, my competition and me, wrestling and,
Right.
And against women.
One of the girls, and I had the quote here, and I can't, of course, find it right off the top.
Oh, is it that one girl that I think?
No, not that girl, but no, because we'll get to her. But no, one girl who was, Destiny Dominguez said it's nothing strength-wise as a wrestler. It's how strong you are. It's not how strong you are. It's your mentality and how you wrestle. So she was really bringing up the point that being strong, that might help you as a boxer or in other sports, but in wrestling, it is about the technique and your training. And you don't have, so I guess it brings me to my question, because again, I do see Sue's not here right now, so I can kind of say this. Oh, look, I see her back, but I'm not.
I love having a conversation like this, Billy. Go right ahead.
Okay, so I understand what Sue's saying about, the girls are this, the girls are that. My understanding is that the reason why boys compete with boys and girls compete with girls is for an even playing field. Words that Sue hates when I say this. But I will say there were girls in my high school who were wrestling who could have whipped my ass. It would have been very easy. So should sports like wrestling be intramural?
I mean that they already have, in states to where they have co-ed wrestling. And the thing is that I posted this several times. There was a girl, that went to nationals, and she was in the 118-pound bracket, 116-pound bracket, and she won against all the boys. In nationals, nationals is huge for wrestling. That's something that's I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. That's something that's, incomprehensible, unachievable, but is achievable because you have to be the best. And so she did this going against the guys in Greco, which never mind that, Greco is all upper body strength versus in freestyle and folk style, you have to use your legs and you have to use your upper body. So not only did she win against the guys, but she also won against the guys in the style that's probably that requires the most strength.
That the boys you would think would have the advantage.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you think about it, and it's like there's no argument on to, whether a female does have a disadvantage to men. Like, it's all about work ethic and how much you put in.
Billy, I said it before, in a perfect world, right, we wouldn't have genders, right? We wouldn't be forced into, the gender stereotypes unless we wanted to be, right? We wouldn't have norm. We could be what we wanted to be, and we would compete against people in an equitable way, right? Like the Boston Marathon does, like running. Running is a great example of, the women elite athletes beat 95% of the people participating in the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, but the elite men usually beat the elite women.
Right, they do, but that is also a sport where we're going to see probably, most likely, that a woman will be able to beat the elite men. It probably not in our lifetime.
Yeah, I don't.
Probably in Mack's lifetime.
Well, we're starting to get to a point where we're starting to use more alternative medicines. We're starting to unlock different ways to how to adjust our bodies to our environment. And that as science proves, like that's we're starting to unlock chiropractic, which is like I found as a useful tool. I don't take medication anymore. I don't use ibuprofen. I don't even want to be near any pharmaceutical medicines like that, because we're starting, as at least for me, I see my body's a temple, and I want to treat it as so.
Billy actually snorts ibuprofen. I don't know.
I do constantly. Right here.
So you're right.
This show is brought to you by Advil. Right here. Constantly. I just want people.
You're young, Mack. It's okay.
So Mack, let me ask you about Patty Overstreet, who is the mother of one of the wrestlers who continued referring to as she. So when I say she, I'm quoting her. She's standing there holding her head high like she's the winner. She's not winning. It's not equal. It's never going to be equal. She's cheating. Now, I can understand from somebody who may not understand the subtleties of the science, thinking this was a girl who's taking testosterone, so she's got an advantage. And I get that. So is it a question of education, or is it, as Sue says, a question of, misogyny or even ignorance?
It's both.
Yeah.
I think it's both. Because, I see both sides. I'm just like you, Billy. I see both sides. But I definitely do have a side. Yeah. Because, it all comes with it. You have, in order to, come with it, attack these social institutions, you have to come with a neutral standpoint, because you have to be able to understand what the other side is saying. And I learned that in debate. You can't just take one side and be argumentative on that side and not be able to see the other side's perspective. If you want to reach the other side, you have to be able to take examples. Right. You have to be able to see that and be able to provide those examples for them that they can relate to. It's all about relatable content that side can view. It's just like with anything you talk about.
But that's
you're saying that. Oh, go ahead.
That situation was terrible though, because that wasn't your choice, right?
I mean,
you were forced to compete against the girls.
I mean, if you had been able to do what you wanted to do and what you should have been able to do, then it wouldn't have been a discussion at all. And then that's the part, the short-sightedness. And
that's interesting. Mack was actually trying to look out for kind of everyone. And I know as a performer, not necessarily an athlete, although I did get my letter at Medford High School, thank you very much. In diving, I was a diver, and I competed against girls because diving is something that really is sort of a level playing field. Art. Right, exactly. But anyway, what I was going to say is that in some sports, you want to compete against the better athletes because it makes you better. So I can understand you wanting to do that. I can also understand this mother's point of view saying, can't my little daughter just compete against some little petite little girl and win a trophy? So I get that too.
Limiting yourself, just saying. But I mean, that's putting limits for yourself.
It is, right?
If you're
obviously.
To be an athlete, you're wanting to compete against the best. You want to be the best, and that's the whole thing. When you're in high school, that's society telling you, you need to pick a sport, and people always, like, very rare compete in multiple sports. It's very hard to juggle. It's very hard. But it's usually you're on a one path course, right? And if you want to compete in high school and have fun, then go ahead. That's what you should want to do, is have fun.
Right, and that I think is Sue's point.
And you know what? If they're so concerned about women's sports and girls' sports and protecting girls and girls' sports, then invest in them, right? Invest in them without the threat of federal funding being withheld, right? Treat the women's and girls' sports like you're treating the men's and the boys' sports. Look at the NAA, the NA, what is it? The
NCAA.
The NCAA women's teams.
I thought that was ridiculous. I was so mad. They had no gym. They have a lousy test bubble. They've got crappy COVID testing. They're not taking into account coaches and managers who are just had babies and have family issues. And meanwhile, the men's teams, are raking in all the dough and getting all the marketing money. If you are so concerned about trans people competing in sports, all the small percentage of people who actually exist on this planet who would be elite athletes who happen to be trans, why don't you take that and go move and worry and invest into women's and girls' sports if you're so worried about equity and equality? Yeah, I mean, just that argument itself, it's all about, marketing and how people like, and right. The thing is that people don't market. Yeah. And so I see from that side, people are arguing that the reason why, the women's NCAA basketball team doesn't receive that much money is because they don't get that many views. Okay, well then start, marketing the NCAA's women's basketball team championships, like instead of the men's.
They don't spend any money looking at it, right? And it's not supposed to be. These are nonprofit colleges, right? This is not supposed to be a money-making thing. The case that's before the Supreme Court now regarding whether or not college athletes are professional or amateur. Not to make it sound like the men's team, even though they're enjoying the benefits of a great gym and an education, they're not necessarily enjoying and sharing the lion's share of the profits that are coming into the university. So
exactly.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question, Max. Since you've been on both sides, on the female teams and the male teams, and we will talk about your college experience too, have you noticed how the girls versus the boys were treated on their teams, either by the school's support or by what they were given?
For me personally, I was fortunate enough to go to a college that was very diverse and inclusive of the men's team and the women's team. Okay. So I mean, yeah, for high school wise, it was more of not the diversity of, or how do I explain it? Football is a very big thing in Texas, so. All football teams got, the spotlight. Nike was like, Nike gave more things to, the football team rather than, gymnastics, wrestling, right. Track and field. So it really wasn't more the perspective of, the males got more, the females got more. It was just
that one sport.
Football got more.
Yeah. So let's talk about college. Now, you were in a really interesting situation when it came to college, is that and I know I'm going to screw this up too, so don't mind me, but my understanding was you were accepted under a girls' scholarship, a female scholarship, but wanted to go ahead, you tell it.
Yeah, I was initially like the female coaches on the female wrestling team asked me, and I wasn't going to compete, with the females. It was more the fact that I was going to compete internationally, so I was going to be able to do freestyle and Greco, not necessarily folk style anymore. So that would have been like a huge step for me. But the thing is that I didn't want to be accepted by women's coaches, because then what does that set for my story? The whole thing is that I wanted to go to college and I wanted to compete as a male wrestler, and not just train, and then hope, they take me somewhere when, they have their own women's team that, the NAIA has their own, set dates to where they compete. So when do I get my competition in? Like, when do I get my focus?
So you were in a really lucky situation because the coach of the males team was really in favor of however you got into the school, he would work with you. Is that basically what happened?
Yeah, I had my coach Travis Clark at my high school. He was like, this sounds like, because I was gonna get $5,000 or $2,000 for my scholarship. So I turned down money in order to do what I wanted to do.
Wow.
So we got a hold of the head coach at the university. And Coach Omi, love him to death. He's stuck by my side throughout everything that's been going on in my life right now. Bless his soul. And he was like, as long as you got the grades, and this is what it comes down to when it comes to college, and that's what people need to take away from this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about your athletic ability. Where are your grades? What's your SATs? And what's your ACTs? What are your scores? That's what it comes down to.
And it bears noting that in high school, even though you were forced to compete against the girls, you still finished third place against the boys. Is that right?
Yeah, that was actually, my junior year, USA Wrestling didn't let me compete at all in the tournaments in the summer against the guys, because I was, on suspension because of I competed in the women's tournaments during the summer, even though I was in Greco and, wrestling against the guys, but, I had to get my suspension somehow. So I had a little bit of suspension for that up until the nationals or the national in the junior division. And I didn't do so high. I got fourth in that year. But, I was like, I really want to prove people wrong. I was like, I really want to, stick it to the man. I was like, there's no way that I'm losing this time. That's crazy. So then I was able to, compete in all the tournaments my senior year during summer. And, when I went to juniors nationals for freestyle and folk style, I got third in both. And I got beat by the same two dudes that were on the podium. So and they went to the same school. So it was kind of like a little oxymoron, but I was like, God, I guess they just worked harder than me. I just, and they were younger than me too. So, they were little boys, just, kicking ass. I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now? I was like, I got handed my ass handed to by some 17-year-old. I was like 19, about to be 20 in April. I was like, are you kidding me right now? This is ridiculous. But I'm happy with what I got, because I was like, that's something that I'm proud of. I was able to prove people wrong that I can still compete against these men, these young men, and do great.
So what's the plan now? What happens now? What are you doing now, and where can we expect to see you?
Right now, I have future plans of becoming the first trans man to, be in the UFC. If Joe Rogan, decides to put aside his hatred towards, with his transphobia and everything. But yeah, right now I officially retired from collegiate wrestling about 2 months ago. And I'm now focusing on an MMA, jiu-jitsu, and kickboxing route, to compete in the UFC.
Wow.
You're also working really hard to try to change the laws. And what you've pointed out is that Texas is it one of 30 states that forces you to compete against the gender on your birth certificate? Is that correct?
It's actually it's in the teens of how many states that do have that initial
okay. No, it's 30 states that introduced bills to try to limit it. Right. And right now, I don't know how many there are that have already passed.
And the thing is, these states already had their anti-trans bills in place already. It was just harder to try to compete in, either the gender that you had to compete in or the gender that you wanted to identify as. The thing is that these states, their anti-trans bills are just, it has nothing to do with, trans people and trans athletes. It all has to do with, attacking women in sports.
Well, and you also brought up a really good point, which was that this was also connected to the bathroom bills that we've talked about on this show so many times. So explain how you think it's connected.
It's just connected with the same, misogyny way of thinking. It's, these lawmakers and these legislators, it's their standard of what society thinks what should be, when in reality, our society is changing and it's evolving. Look at just from the 1920s to right now. We've made leaps and bounds in just, the religion and, science and evolution, and it's just crazy. Like, we don't what I'm like, I want to live till like I'm 120 to just prove to everybody, like, in the next 100 years, like, just how much is just what's going to change. And I follow this app called Gaia, and super informative tool. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I'm into a lot of space theories and, like the secret programs and everything with the government and aliens. Like, so, like, yeah.
Oh my God, you're my kind of guy. I'm into all that too.
Like, it's very informative. It's crazy. And, like, not everyone's your friend. That's the thing, is like, we can't trust, I personally can't trust the government. As much as I want to have faith in the government, I don't trust them. So, it's really, society, and has always been, it's always in our hand, and always in our hands. It's in society's hands on what we want the world to be and how it's going to change.
It's funny you said 120 because Billy's 120.
Give or take. See, don't I look good for 120? We should, I don't want the day to pass by without mentioning, and this was just luck. This was certainly not planned, that yesterday was Transgender Day of Visibility. And, you've been thrust, as Sue pointed out, you just wanted to compete. You were just some guy who wanted to wrestle. And somehow you've gotten caught up in this whole political machine and fighting for rights and getting involved with Congress and all sorts of things. Do you ever sit there and say, maybe I just should have not even opened this can of worms and said, all right, I'm going to transition, but I'm not going to wrestle, and I'm going to live my life under the radar?
I've never said that, but I have said something of a modification of that. I've always said that I wanted to do what I always wanted to do, but, the spotlight, talking to people, that's not what I wanted. I just still wanted to live my truth. Like, I'm still not going to stop being who I am. Like, that's just me as a person. Like,
so you're not necessarily drawn to the spotlight, and doing stuff like this is not what you're in it for.
Yeah, I just want to do it because I care about, kids. Like, that's at the end of the day. Like, I don't want another kid to go what I went through, because, my mental health did take a toll on me during, like, these past several years when I was in college. I mean, and
in high school, you considered suicide.
Yeah, I've actually attempted suicide twice in high school.
Wow.
Yeah. The first time was, like, my sister saw, like, the blade in the bathroom, and she, like, came in crying, and that hurt my soul. Like, my little sister is, like, everything to me. My sister is, like, 80 pounds, and she's like, I will kick anybody's ass in order to, like, if anybody hurts you. I'm just like, okay, Sophia, whatever. But, like, that's.
And I will point out, slitting your wrists is a very guy way of committing suicide. So, it's not like you took pills or something. You were a guy. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, Sue.
I did both.
Oh, well. Oh, see, there you go. You covered all your bases.
Sorry, Sue. This is bad, when
Sue had one thing to hold on to.
I was just going to say something nice about how we're so glad you're here, and you didn't. But clearly, it's just,
You know what made you then try this or consider it the second time, if it was your sister that got you through the first time?
I couldn't handle the hatred. I didn't want to deal with it anymore.
I think people should know there's videos, and really disturbing videos, of you competing and people like booing. I mean, it was really horrific.
Yeah, I never really actually had a real championship either. That's the thing, is like, I look back on it, I wish that I told my coach, no, I don't want you to pull me off into the hallway. But, I understand that it was for my safety at the end of the day. And,
were you ever really afraid for your person?
I would have took on anyone in that freaking arena. Like,
the point is, like we said, that we sometimes look at it from a physical standpoint, right? Like, no, he probably wasn't in any danger because, you're a championship wrestler, and, hopefully adults will act like adults. But the emotional toll of that, especially when you're going through what you're going through, and you're looking to adults. I mean, no wonder you don't trust the government. You look to adults to help you to do the right thing when you're, in middle school and high school, the administration, who are the de facto, government of
authority figures,
and they fail you. So, of course you're going to have a mistrust of that. But at the same time, we're looking at what President Joe Biden did this week reinstating trans military and armed services people, and the backlash that's growing against states and cities that have these anti-trans bills, and the realization of what's really going on here. It's not about,
and it's also like any of these bills are getting passed in these states. Like the NCAA's are like, not wanting, or even the Olympics, they're not wanting to have any championships held in their state, which is like huge. That would be a huge step to calling out to these states that have already passed these bills and are considering passing them.
Yeah, and it also seems to me that the more the people like you who are succeeding in the adversity, that, most adults would not do what you're doing. It takes enormous courage to go out there knowing you're going to be facing bigotry and hatred and still do it and then succeed. So I think it's people like you that really are making a change, and maybe will change some people's opinions one person at a time.
Look at what you've done, Billy. Look at this. This is Billy's already.
You've got me thinking. Look, you've got me thinking. And it's funny. Maybe I'm a misogynist, but I'm really not.
What do you think? Maybe? What do you think?
Oh, I think so.
There might be some misogynists.
Oh no, some of my best friends are girls.
There might be some male misogynists out there. I don't know, Billy.
Well, let me tell you, I really was looking at it. And again, maybe because I was looking at girls as the weaker sex, which I guess is part of misogyny, that I'm like, well, I don't want some guy fighting against a girl because he's got an unfair advantage.
Listen,
well, that is something that's programmed into it.
No, every anti-trans argument, that political argument, is built around trying to protect women.
Right.
Exactly. Men.
And all these bills, all their evidence is dated back from like 1990. This is the Kansas bill. These are the two evidences that I saw and the dates that were beside them: 1996, 2011, and 2012.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. I mean, that's the idea of to talk about restroom access. There are already laws on the books to keep you from being assaulted in a restroom, and women are in much more danger. It's domestic violence month or sexual assault awareness month. We are in much more danger with the men that we live with than anybody we might randomly
McDonald's bathroom, right?
And so again, if you really want to protect women, then let's invest in keeping women safe in their homes.
Right, because how many trans women are praying at the McDonald's? Probably not a lot.
Hey, I gotta go.
Okay, you go. I'm going to finish up with
It was
Max.
great to meet you.
It's so great meeting you.
Thank you so much. And Billy,
no problem.
Keep an eye on Billy for me.
Yeah, all right. He'll keep me legal. All right. Bye, Sue. Thank you, Sue. Mac,
all right, now that the parents gone.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. And she thinks I'm the old one. You're now really, again, just because you wanted to wrestle, you've been thrust into this leadership position in terms of the trans community and really the LGBT community. You've become a hero for a lot of people. Is that something that you're comfortable with?
I've had to grow into that comfort, because like I was always like very outspoken about mental health and the LGBT community, but the more that as you develop as a person, you kind of have your certain niches and cliques. For instance, like you have you have a a subcategory, and you have on top of the category that you're wanting to specifically talk about. So my social media platform started to really develop into the aspect of like trans individuals, the LGBT community, and mental health, on top of intersecting into all these different things that that are all interconnected, that I had no idea until I got to college, I got to high school, I started learning about Black Lives Matter movement. I really started getting into that, even though I'm an ally for that. Because
you've gotten ally awards as well.
Yeah.
But you've had, you've obviously, look, I've been a member of the gay community for 30 years, and I still fumble. It is an evolution, and the thing is that you're going to learn from everybody you talk to, and if you're open,
we're
if
all
you're willing
human.
to talk.
We're all human, Billy. I mean, that's what it
Right.
comes down to. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes. My friend just recently I was calling them like her pronouns for like the longest, and now they just came out as Grayson, and they want to be called he and they pronouns, like literally just the other day.
And you're gonna
And so
slip.
I might slip sometimes. I'm now, when I talk about them, I have to slow it down. I don't want to, say something wrong, but that's, that's just from training myself for a very long time to be respectful and be respectful of like people of what they want to be called. So it's just an evolution of just, this is not going to stop. Like, why should my opinions, even though my opinions are, I love everybody. Like, if you want to be a unicorn, go be a freaking unicorn. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, as long as somebody's happy, that's what matters. If you're happy,
and how lucky is Grayson to have had somebody like you who would pave the way for him?
Yeah, 100%. And I love them to death. They've always been supportive of me. So I'm not gonna, be like, oh, I'm not supportive of you. Like, no, I'm gonna be supportive because you're my friend. And even if you weren't my friend, like, it's human for us to, just be respectful. Like, it's not that hard, be respectful of other people's opinion. If I can respect your opinion at the end of the day, why can't you respect mine?
Right, exactly. So we talked about, that body and who you are and how you identify is not necessarily connected with sex. We found that with Gabby Tuft, who had been a man who had been with women, and he's now a man. I mean, now he's a woman, so she's a she, and still has a wife. So that hasn't changed. Before you transitioned, you had girlfriends, correct?
Yeah, I even have boyfriends too. I mean, I swing both ways. I'm pansexual. I got my pansexual flag, and my transgender flag. And
that makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you have somebody in your life that is supportive of you?
Yes, my girlfriend's actually in the other room. I think she's actually listening right now.
All right, so be sure.
Yeah, I love her to death.
So did she come into your life after this whole transition or in the middle of all this drama?
Yes, it was actually in the past year, actually.
Wow.
So I didn't even tell her about everything. She just, we were on a dating app, and I was just, she knew that I was trans. No, actually, she didn't know that I was trans.
Wow.
So like I passed so well that people don't like, and that's another thing is like the media, like, thinks that
hello, that is a hot guy. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, really.
Yeah, the media portrayed is using my story and is like bandwagoning it to where I am representing trans females. Like, I passed so well that they don't even realize that I was actually biologically born a female. And so they think that I'm transitioning to be a female, because that's how standard society thinks of how a trans person looks. But yeah, they're completely supportive of me, and I didn't come out to them until actually, like, I think it was like a month into we were talking. I was like, oh, and by the way, I know I have it in my bio, but like, do you know that I'm trans? I just want to make it clear and evident. And she was like, yeah, no, I didn't actually. Hold on. She was like,
and what the hell does that mean? Right. Well, again, everybody is going to need an education to catch up to what you've actually been living through for years.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. And the thing is that this is what the trans community needs to understand, is that not everybody is going to, be perfect when coming to this resolution of, of us being who we are. And, that's when it comes to the neutral aspect of you have to be able to understand the other side's perspective. And that's when we could come to a clear resolution of like, a utopia, even though we will never concede to a utopia because that's unrealistic, but in just retrospective, in a retrospective way, just being in harmony with each other.
Well, and also recognizing what you've said, which is that Every trans person is going to be different. They may want to be called he or she or they, or they may get surgery. They may not get surgery. I know that
exactly.
you've at least already started the surgery. I don't know how far along you are, but have you been happy with the results? Do now the results match what you thought in your head?
Yes, they do. I mean, one nipple is kind of like not like looking like the other, but I mean, it's okay. I mean, that's the whole part of loving yourself. You know, if you're gonna take these steps into being who you are as a person, you have to be happy with what you have.
Right.
I mean, with what you are given. I am privileged, and I am so grateful to have a family that supports me and was able to save up enough money in order for me to receive the surgery that I wanted to. And
Okay.
the next step is like bottom surgery, which I don't even
you
know if
haven't done
I
that
even
yet.
want. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
even know
you
if I
may
want to
not.
get that or not, because
Right.
it's all the science and the medical procedures. Like, do I want to do that to myself? Am I going? I have to be happy with myself, and especially when you're going throughout life, is you have to be happy with yourself first, and then
Right.
everything else will fall into place. That's when everything starts falling, into that, like, oh, this is how life is supposed to be. Like, even though it sucks, but this is how it is. Like, it's
And
just
you
all
have to
back and
do
forth
what
thing.
you're comfortable with, because again,
Yeah,
there's no
exactly.
time. There's no timeline for comfort. Comfort develops over time, and when
Exactly.
you're ready to do another step, if you even do another step, that will be up to you. But at least it's been, look, I can't imagine. It's got to be a relief for you to actually look in a mirror and say, wow, what I thought I should look like is actually what I'm seeing back at me. And that's a beautiful thing.
It is beautiful. It definitely is beautiful, Billy. I can look in the mirror now and like I can just be like, man, I look good. Like, I'm so happy with who I am right now.
Mac, well, I think, as again, I will say it again. You look good. I'm sorry. You look good there. You look good there. And you look good here, too. Can I just say you look good everywhere? And the fact that you tell your story so well and you really are so open and patient with people, because I think you probably had to be patient with yourself. So I think you've learned from the ground up.
Yeah, I'm glad I did. I think, and that's just like in terms of it. And that's what I love about wrestling is that, it teaches you life lessons. And in order to, get to that tip top of like what you want to be as a person and that idealistic person that you are, you have to start from, ground zero. And that's just in anything in life that you do.
Cool. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end it. Mac, you've been a delight. I'm so glad we had you on and we had some really great discussions. Please stay in touch with us and we'll have you back on and see what's going on and anything we can do. Oh, do you have a website or something?
Just two social media platforms. My biggest one on Instagram is alpha.trans. You can reach me there. And then on Facebook, Mack Beggs.
And he
Just like
also
me.
has a YouTube channel with a lot of videos there where you're really very, very open on your videos.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta get back on it, but yeah, for sure.
Well, it's how
You
I was able
just
to
type in my
find you.
name
So.
on YouTube, and you'll find it. I promise you.
Mac, thank you. Have a great weekend. We'll talk again
All right, you
soon.
too. Thank you so much, Billy. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Oh my God, what a delight. Oh my God, if you were only a little older, I would have dated him. And well, he wanted women. Well, potato, potato. Anyway, another fascinating episode of Billy Masters Live. Next week, I don't know who's going to be here next week. We try to keep it really at the to the last minute because stories come up that I really think are fascinating. So, anyway, until I see you guys again, have a great weekend. Please stay safe. If you can get a vaccine, go out and get a vaccine, will you? Because as I have said before, a little prick is better than no prick at all. Talk to you later. Have a great weekend. This has been Billy Masters Live. Oh, and I'm supposed to tell you because they keep yelling at me. So, if you're on YouTube, this button down here, right there, that says subscribe, subscribe, but also press the bell. You got to ring the bell. I don't know why. There's this whole thing about bells. So, and if you're watching on Facebook, go to YouTube, Billy Masters TV. You'll find us. Okay, great. Have a great weekend. This has been Billy Masters Live. And if we're here, we're live. Bye, guys.